They smirked when you walked away. They shrugged as if your presence had never mattered. Their eyes, full of dismissal, followed you, as if you were nothing more than a passing shadow. They thought you were the weak one, the one who would come crawling back, the one who could never survive without them. But now, in your absence, something lingers. A void, a silence that speaks louder than their laughter ever did. They told themselves it wouldn't matter, told each other you were forgettable, replaceable, insignificant. Yet here they are, looking over their shoulders, scanning the room for the energy only you carried. It's a feeling they can't shake, an emptiness they never prepared for, a pain they never expected. You were supposed to be the one who lost. That's how they wrote the script. They framed you as the dependent one, the one who needed validation, the one who would always stay, no matter how many times they overlooked you, no matter how many times they made you feel like an afterthought. But something changed, didn't it? You got tired of being the unspoken backbone, the uncredited architect of their comfort, the silent force that kept everything together while they took and took until there was nothing left. So you walked, and they laughed, because in their mind, you walking away wasn't a loss. It was an inconvenience at best. But what they didn't understand, what they failed to see, was that your absence wouldn't just be a quiet footnote in their story. No, your absence would be felt, and not just felt, it would echo, it would haunt, it would remind them, over and over again, of what they took for granted. Because here's the truth they never considered. You weren't the one who needed them. They were the ones who needed you. They never prepared for this moment. They'd prepared the moment where your name lingers in conversations, where your energy is missed in rooms you no longer enter, where your presence, or rather the lack of it, becomes an ache in places they thought would stay whole. They never thought they would feel the impact of losing you, but now they do. At first, they told themselves it was nothing, a passing discomfort, something they'd adjust to. But absence is a different kind of pain. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It creeps into quiet moments. It finds its way into spaces where they were once sure of themselves. They sit in the same circles, but something feels off. Allah. Their laughter feels forced. The energy is different. And they realize, too late, that it was never about the space. It was never about the conversations. It was you. You were the weight in the room, the gravity that pulled everything together, the silent force that made things whole. And now that force is gone. You see people underestimate presence until it becomes absence. They dismiss the light until they are left in the dark, until they are left in the dark. They ignore the warmth until they're standing in the cold. They assume they will always have access to you, until they don't. Until your silence is louder than your words. Until your distance is more suffocating than your closeness ever was. Until they sit in the very same spaces that once felt full, and now all they feel is what's missing. Let that sink in. You were the glue, you were the light, you were the foundation they never thought could crack, and they never saw it, never truly appreciated it, until you removed yourself from the equation. But this isn't about them, no. This is about you, about the moment you realized you had given too much, stayed too long, tolerated too much disregard. The moment you decided that walking away wasn't just an option, it was survival. It was self-respect. It was the only way to reclaim what was left of you. And now here you are, standing on the other side, stronger, clearer, free. And you might be wondering, did it even matter? Did they even notice? Were you really as forgettable as they made you feel? Oh, they noticed. At first, they acted as if nothing changed, kept up the facade, played their roles. But little by little, reality crept in. And reality has a way of making itself known. It's in the way their conversations don't flow the same way, the way their victories feel less fulfilling, the way their energy feels incomplete. It's in the way they scroll through their memories and realize how much of the color, the fire, the intensity was because of you. And now there is only a void. Your absence is the pain they never expected. But you are free. And I need you to hear me right now. I need you to understand that this is your moment. The moment to shift the narrative, to reclaim what they made you doubt, to rise into the version of yourself that was never meant to stay in the shadows. Because listen to me, this isn't about proving them wrong. This isn't about revenge or bitterness or making them regret. That's too small for you. That's too ordinary for someone like you. This is about something greater. This is about you finally stepping into the power you never should have given away in the first place. You weren't just someone in their story. You were the story. The one who made things move, the one who carried the weight without complaint, the one who sacrificed, adjusted, forgave, understood, until there was nothing left to give. But not anymore. You see, they expected your pain. They expected your loneliness. They expected your doubt, your second guessing, your slow return to the familiar. But what they never expected was your glow up, your silence, your rise. The way you would step into yourself so fully, so powerfully, that your absence wouldn't just be felt, it would be regretted. And that regret, that's not your burden to carry. Because you are not the one who lost. You are not the one who will be left wondering, questioning, wishing. You are not the one who will spend sleepless nights replaying the past, longing for what once was. They are. So don't look back. Don't wonder what they're thinking. Don't waste another second shrinking yourself to fit into spaces that were never worthy of you. They wrote you off, they thought you would fade. But here you are, unshaken, unstoppable, unforgettable. Your absence is their lesson. But your presence, that is your power. And from this moment forward, you walk like you own the ground beneath you. There comes a moment when the weight is no longer bearable. It doesn't happen suddenly. No, it builds. Layer by layer, moment by moment, word by unspoken word. It builds through the silences that scream louder than insults, through the cold stares that cut deeper than knives, through the way they made you feel like your presence was a privilege you had to earn. And then, one day, something inside you snaps, not in rage, not in bitterness, but in a quiet, irreversible way. In the way that endings always feel, not loud, not explosive, but like the final click of a lock that can never be reopened. You stood there, looking at the life you had tolerated for too long, the people you had fought for, the ones who never fought for you. You felt the exhaustion in your bones, the weight in your chest, and you realized this is not where you belong. So you did the one thing they never expected. You walked away, not with a grand farewell, not with a dramatic exit, but with a finality that couldn't be undone. And at first, it didn't feel like power. It didn't feel like freedom. It felt like loss, like cutting off a part of yourself and leaving it behind. Because even when a place is toxic, even when people take more than they give, even when a situation drains the very light from your soul, leaving still feels like grieving. They say change is necessary. They say you deserve better. But no one tells you about the nights that come after, the silence that follows, the way you second-guess yourself. What if you were wrong? What if they were right? What if you really were too sensitive, too difficult, too much? They made you feel that way, didn't they? That the problem was never them, it was you. That your expectations were unrealistic, that your pain was an overreaction, that your absence wouldn't make a difference because you were the one who always needed them, not the other way around. And in those quiet moments, when the doubt creeps in, when the loneliness tightens its grip, when the temptation to return feels unbearable, you start to wonder, who would think anyone would want that? Where I and life would meet in the middle. What if I wasn't enough? What if I never was? Because that's what they planted inside you, wasn't it? That seed of doubt, that whisper in the back of your mind, that fear that without them you are nothing. And so you sit there, in the silence after the storm, staring at the emptiness they left behind. But listen to me carefully. That feeling you're drowning in, that's not proof that you made a mistake. That's proof that you were bound to something that was never meant to hold you. You were tethered to people who only loved you when you were convenient. You were tied to places that only valued you when you were silent. You were giving your energy to people who never truly saw you, only what you could do for them. And now that you are gone, it feels empty, not because you lost something, but because you finally made space to find yourself. And not because you finally made space to find yourself, but because you finally made space to find yourself. But finding yourself doesn't happen in an instant. No, it happens in phases. First comes the doubt, the longing, the restless nights where you replay the past, searching for the moment everything fell apart. Then comes the anger, the realization that they never fought for you the way you fought for them. The understanding that you spent years, months, days sacrificing pieces of yourself for people who never once thought to return the favor. And then comes the awakening. The moment you sit in your solitude and recognize the power in your own presence. The moment you stop mourning what you walked away from and start celebrating what you walked toward. Because here's the truth. You didn't leave because you were weak. You left because you were strong enough to understand your worth. You left because you finally saw that staying was not love, it was self-betrayal. You left because you realized that you will never be enough for the wrong people, but for the right ones, you will be everything. And now, in the silence, in the space where they once stood, in the void that once felt unbearable, you begin to see it for what it is, not emptiness, but freedom. And freedom, my dear, is the foundation upon which you will rise. You walked away, and that was the beginning of everything. At first, they barely noticed, or maybe they pretended not to. They carried on just as they always had, laughing the same, moving the same, speaking the same, as if your departure was nothing more than a passing event, like wind through an open door, like a moment too insignificant to remember. They told themselves it wouldn't matter, that you were never the reason things worked, that your presence was an accessory, a footnote in their story, that you needed them, never the other way around. But time has a way of unraveling lies. Because it started small, almost imperceptible, an offbeat rhythm in their conversations, a silence in places where your voice used to fill the air, the absence of your energy, your fire, your unwavering support. They still had their circle, they still had their comfort, but something felt off. The jokes didn't land the same. The room didn't feel as warm. At first, they brushed it off. After all, you were just one person, easily replaced, easily forgotten. Weren't you? But that's the thing about people like you. You don't just exist in a space. You shape it, you amplify it, you give it life in ways they never appreciated until it was gone. And now the cracks are showing. Their world, once so solid, now feels fragile. The house they built, the one you carried on your back, the one that stood tall because of your silent sacrifices, it's starting to crumble. Because without you, things aren't quite as effortless as they thought they'd be. They assumed you were dispensable, that someone else could fill your space, that your absence was a vacancy easily occupied. But every attempt to replace you has failed. No one laughs like you did. No one listens the way you used to. No one understands the unspoken tension. No one smooths the rough edges. No one brings the light the way you did. They took you for granted, and now their world feels less, because you were more than they ever admitted. And the regret, oh, it creeps in slow, seeps into their quiet moments, whispers in their ears when the noise dies down. At night, they remember the words they carelessly threw at you, the dismissals, the way they assumed you'd always be there, no matter how much they took, no matter how little they gave in return. And now, in your absence, those words have turned against them. They haunt them in ways they never imagined. They laughed when you left. Now that laughter tastes like regret. They thought they won. They thought they held all the power. They thought you would be the one suffering. But the truth is, you didn't lose anything that was ever meant for you. And they lost everything they never deserved in the first place. Because now they sit with the realization, the one they never prepared for, the one they never saw coming. You weren't the one who needed them. They were the ones who needed you. And now it's too late. You didn't just leave. You evolved. They thought walking away meant you were lost, broken, searching for something you would never find. They assumed you would struggle without them, that your absence would be your downfall, that without their approval, without their validation, you would fade into nothing. But what they never expected was this. You didn't fall. You ascended. Because the pain they caused, it didn't destroy you. It transformed you. The doubt they planted in you, it didn't break you. It became your fire. At first, the silence felt unfamiliar. The space where they used to be, the ones who underestimated you, overlooked you, dismissed you, felt like a void. But something happened in that silence, something they never prepared for. You started listening. Not to them, not to their doubts, not to their expectations. You started listening to yourself. And in that moment, the shift began. No more proving yourself. No more shrinking to fit into spaces that never deserved you. No more begging to be seen, to be valued, to be understood. You took all of it, the pain, the rejection, the self-doubt, and you built something greater. Click-through rate. Look at click-through rate by percent. Build the pursuit down to 70%. You learned, you healed, you grew, you rose, and now you are unshakable. The version of you they knew, gone. That person, the one who tolerated, who dimmed their own light, who second-guessed their worth, that person no longer exists. And they can feel it. They check up on you now, silently, from a distance. They wonder how you're doing. They ask around. They scroll through your life like strangers peering through a glass window, unable to reach you the way they once could. And what they see, it haunts them. Because you don't just exist, you thrive. You don't just survive, you succeed. And it wasn't revenge that fueled you. No, you were never that small. It was growth. It was self-respect. It was the realization that you were never the one who needed them. They needed you. And now, they feel your absence deeper than they ever thought possible. Because you didn't just rise, you became untouchable. For so long, you thought you lost them. You thought walking away meant losing something valuable, something irreplaceable, something you could never get back. You questioned yourself. You doubted your worth. You wondered if, just maybe, you made a mistake. But now you see the truth. You didn't lose them. They lost you. And not just anyone, not just a passing presence, not just another name in their story. They lost their biggest asset, the silent protector, the unshaken foundation, the one who carried more than they ever realized, the one who gave more than they ever acknowledged, the one who stayed long after they proved they didn't deserve you. And now Now they feel it. They sit in the spaces where your presence once existed, and the absence, your absence, wraps around them like an unfamiliar weight. They search for something, someone, to replace what you were, but nothing feels the same, because there's no replacement for you. No one to listen the way you did. No one to uplift the way you did. No one to offer the loyalty, the strength, the energy that made them feel invincible. Until it was gone. And you no longer seek closure, because their regret is your closure. Every silent moment they spend wondering why they let you go, every realization that they didn't just lose someone, they lost someone who truly mattered. That is your closure. You don't need their apology. You don't need their words. You don't need their marriage. You don't need them to acknowledge what they took for granted, because you have stepped into a new level of peace, and peace is louder than any apology ever could be. This is the final step, the moment of detachment, the moment you release the weight of what was and embrace the freedom of what is, because your past, it no longer defines you. Their absence in your life, it no longer wounds you, but your absence in theirs, it defines them, because now you live rent-free in the back of their minds. Your name lingers in their conversations. Your impact echoes in their choices. Your presence, now just a memory, is the weight they never saw coming. You are gone, but your absence, it will be felt forever. They never thought they'd see you again. Not like this. Not standing taller, not moving stronger, not existing in a way that makes their world feel smaller. Because when you left, they assumed that was the end of your story. They assumed the absence would swallow you whole, that you would drift into obscurity, that you would eventually come back, not on your terms, but on theirs. But here you are, not as the person they knew, not as the one who tolerated, who endured, who settled. No, you returned to something else entirely. The version of you they never prepared for, the version they never imagined, the version who no longer bends, no longer begs, no longer waits for an invitation to be seen. And now they have no choice but to watch from the sidelines, because this time you don't seek revenge, you don't throw stones, you don't waste energy trying to make them understand what they lost. You simply exist in your greatness. And that alone is the loudest response you could ever give. They see it now. The glow up they never anticipated, the strength they once dismissed, the power they overlooked. They reach out, slowly, hesitantly, unsure of what to say. Regret drips from their voices. You can hear it in the pauses, in the unspoken words, in the way they dance around the truth they never wanted to face. But it doesn't matter anymore, because you have moved beyond needing their words. You don't need their explanations. You don't need their validation. You don't need them to recognize what they failed to see when you stood right in front of them. Because the truth is, you never needed them to see you. You just needed to see yourself. And now you stand in your power without looking back. No longer bitter, just better. They thought your pain would break you. They thought your suffering was your end. But they didn't understand that pain is not the enemy. Pain is the architect of transformation. It wasn't your punishment. It was your preparation. Every moment of doubt, every silent tear, every heartbreak, every night you wondered if you would ever feel whole again, it wasn't for nothing. It was shaping you, refining you, tearing away the old versions of yourself that still sought validation from those who never truly saw you. Your journey was never about them. It was never about proving your worth to those too blind to recognize it. Never about seeking closure from those who refused to give it. Never about making them realize what they lost. It was always about you, finding yourself, rising from the ashes of their indifference, learning that the only validation you ever needed was the one you give yourself. And now you see it clearly. They can regret, they can wish, they can replay the past over and over again, searching for the moment they let you slip through their fingers. But their regret is no longer your concern. Their realization is not your responsibility, because you are no longer bitter. You are better. And better doesn't look back. Better doesn't wait for apologies that will never come. Better doesn't lower itself to make others comfortable. Better rises. Better builds. Better becomes unstoppable. So let them regret. Let them feel the absence of the one they never cherished. And you, keep rising, keep building, keep living as the proof that their biggest mistake was losing you.